This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Sins of the Father, Part 20. When we left off, Manny had gotten an agreement from the Queen Mother and Maribel not to lay hands, feet, or anything else on Portia. Catherine had let Amir down easy and released him to pursue someone else, someone in the life, someone she'd seen him checking out the day before. And Phil was on his way to Miami for the confrontation that Rennie was clearly interested in having, while she and Stax headed to the underground for lunch and drinks and conversation. Angela was having a romantic lunch with Q on the beach, where she found out that she was expecting twins again. And while everyone was convening in the dining room for a late lunch over at the St. James estate, Angela and Q weren't the only missing parties. Manny was heading to Dallas to find out what was going on with LJ. Salima and Wise were enjoying some alone time in the garden. And Stephanie and Corey were in their guest house. Stephanie said, "Corey, that's ridiculous." Corey said, "Actually, it's not. I told you that Mom Brenda had been giving me some kind of smoothies to drink. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I can attribute my stamina to those smoothies." Stephanie said, "Well, remind me to thank her, but I highly doubt that those smoothies made a baby. We tried for nearly a year, and even if those smoothies improved the quality of your sperm, I didn't drink any of them. My eggs are trash, and I've accepted that." Corey said, "Okay, but just be careful. Be cognizant of the fact that Melissa's had some dream, and Melissa's dreams are pretty spot on most of the time." Stephanie said, "I'm always careful. I'm not going to put myself in any unnecessary danger, Corey." Corey said, "Right, but no drinking and avoid all the stuff that pregnant women are supposed to avoid, just in case." Stephanie said, "Now you're going too far. Give me another few days, like a week, and I'll take a pregnancy test and we'll put all of this to rest, okay?" Corey said, "I'm not playing, Steph. I want you to take all necessary precautions, just in case." Stephanie said, "Okay, Corey. You serious about this, aren't you?" Corey said, "Very much so. Hypothetically speaking, how would you feel if you were pregnant? What would you do?" After the longest pause known to man, Stephanie said, "Well, this would be a very interesting time for all of this to be happening. But, I'm sure I'd keep the baby." And Corey said, "What's with you and True in this keep the baby? You'd actually terminate a pregnancy after all that we've been through?" Stephanie said, "It's always something that, as a woman, you consider. I have a right to consider all of my options." Corey said, "In what world would that be an option?" Stephanie said, "In a world where medical concerns, financial concerns, relationship concerns, life concerns might make it prohibitive." Corey said, "Well, we won't have none of that. So keep the baby." And Stephanie said, "Corey, I don't know. I'm trying so hard not to mess things up between you and I this time. I'm scared to answer the question." Corey said, "Your answer to a hypothetical question is not going to mess things up this time." Stephanie said, "You're not going to judge me." Corey said, "I promise. We listen and we don't judge." Stephanie chuckled and said, "Okay, so God works a miracle. I'm pregnant. I'm preparing to be the head of the Lopez family. You are still a pastor, and we are still divorced. I live in Puerto Rico. You live in Dallas. And my perfect hypothetical pregnancy miracle, some of that just ain't gonna work. We'd have to get remarried. And you and baby Kari would have to move to Puerto Rico with me. You can open up a whole new branch of the Salvation Center. The Salvation Center of Puerto Rico." Corey said, "I see." Stephanie said, "And that's why we shouldn't be playing this hypothetical game." Corey said, "Okay, but I'm going to be in prayer on this." Stephanie said, "Of course you are. And so will I." Corey said, "You want to head over to the main house for lunch now?" Stephanie said, "No, I figured we could stay here and practice making a baby." At the main house, Stanley and Big Wood walked into the dining room together. The Queen Mother walked over to them and asked, "Where's Idra?" Stanley said, "He went back to St. Lucia." The Queen Mother said, "Oh, that nigga running, huh?" Stanley said, "He said he had some things to take care of before the funeral." The Queen Mother said, "I bet." She looked at Big Wood and said, "And where's True?" Wood said, "I guess she running too. I don't know where she went." When Catherine walked in, she asked, "Who all is missing? I'm hungry." The Queen Mother said, "And if they were hungry, they'd be here. I'm not waiting on nobody. I'm hungry enough to eat a horse." One of Catherine's guards came over and said, "Miss Catherine, there seems to be some activity in the garden." Catherine said, "Oh, I forgot. Turn those cameras off." The Queen Mother said, "What's going on?" Catherine said, "Wise and Selima." The Queen Mother said, "Them damn newlyweds." Meanwhile, at the underground, Rennie just answered the $1,000,000 question. Do I love him? Yeah, I probably always will, 'cause I always have. But you gotta understand, he's been just about everything to me. He's been my friend, like a brother, and in the not-so-distant past, he was my lover, and he was a good one. Stax asked, "Are you always so matter-of-fact?" Rennie said, "Oh, absolutely. I don't know any other way to be." Stax asked, "And are you always so forward with men?" Rennie said, "Are you asking if I'm a hoe? 'Cause that just depends on who you ask. I'm not gonna BS you. I like what I like. And I like sex. And if I'm having good sex with someone who is not a pain in the behind, then I keep them around. But if those two conditions cannot be met, I'm out of there like Pune. And ain't nothing faster than Pune." Stax fell out laughing. Then he said, "Girl, you crazy." Rennie said, "Yes, I am. And this is as close to normal as I will ever get. I take medication twice a day. It keeps me from becoming obsessive, being unnecessarily homicidal, and living in an alternative reality. Unfortunately, though, it does nothing for my libido. And while it does slow down my racing thoughts, it doesn't stop whatever I'm thinking from coming out of my mouth. And one of the unintended consequences is that I take very little seriously. It drives my friends and family nuts. And it means that I'll probably never be a wife or a mother. And I'm okay with that." Stax said, "Don't believe that lie. There's someone for everyone. That just means you haven't met the right man." Rennie said, "And let me guess, you are the right man." Stax said, "I ain't say all that, but apparently that little nigga Phil must think that he is. He's at the safe house." Rennie said, "Well, I'll be damned. How'd he find me?" Stax said, "Apparently Marley dropped him off there. What you want me to have the soldiers tell him?" Rennie said, "Tell him to wait there. I'll handle it when I get there." Stax said, "And how you want to play it?" Rennie said, "I told you. I'm done with him." Stax said, "If you did half of the things with him that you did with me last night, that nigga gonna be in his feelings." Rennie said, "And?" Stax said, "You better handle him so I don't have to." Rennie said, Stax said, "What?" Rennie said, "I'm trying to decide. Do we go back to the safe house and I'll wait and see what you do? Or do I lay out my expectations now and give you the blueprint?" Stax said, "I'm not gonna do what you want me to do. I'm gonna do what I want to do. I get that you used to controlling things and having your way. You give me spoiled brat. You said D was like a big brother, right?" Rennie said, "Yeah. Well, if my intuition is right, that makes you the little sister of somebody close to the family. You're not Wise's sister or Wood's, so you must be LJ's." Rennie said, "Very astute." Stack said, "So I already know what you're expecting of me, and I know now. You're gonna be a handful." Rennie said, "Well, if you think it's gonna be too much for you, we can make last night a one-time thing." Stack said, "Nah. You and I, we got a lot in common. I have a very short fuse, but this job requires self-control. So while I have a million thoughts running through my mind at any given moment, I say very little. Most people don't even know what my voice sounds like." Rennie said, "Ooh, I must be special then." Stax gave a rare smile and said, "Javier assigned me and my team to your friend because he knows that I like a challenge and I'm good under pressure. He also knows that I'm not the kind of nigga you gotta teach a lesson twice. I take direction well, but I give it even better. And I'm not gonna tell anybody anything more than once. Like you, I like what I like. I like women who I can tell the truth, who I don't have to BS about what I do for a living, who have lives of their own and aren't looking for me to entertain them, who ain't gonna trip when I'm unavailable because I'm putting in work. But when we both available, I'm her priority and her time is mine. My only non-negotiables are I'm not ready for children and I don't share. So if you're not done with Donovan, Phil, or whoever else, say that." Rennie said, "Well, for the record, I don't share either. And what exactly do you offer in exchange for being the priority, Prince of Zamunda?" Stax laughed and said, "Me. I don't have time to juggle. My time is precious and life is short. So when I share me, my time, and my life, I can deal with a woman being a handful, but she can't be a problem. I don't have enough free time to be competing with other interests or other niggas. And if I'm gonna make more time, it gotta be worth it. I'm not no outside nigga. We not gonna party and BS. Do that with your friends. You want it, you can have it. You need it, I got it. Rennie said, that sounds good and all. But at the level you at, I know how it goes down. Not to mention, my friends are going for months at a time. I'd have to imagine that in your position, the same is going to be true for you, Stack said. And in my position, I have access. I can get you to wherever I am at any time. You just got to be willing. And you got to be honest. If you miss me, say you miss me. You gonna miss me. Rennie said, oh, you cocky. Stack said, nah, I got good energy. Once you have that kind of energy in you, around you, it's hard to live without it. Rennie said, so I'm full. I'm gonna need some of that energy. Let's head back to the safe house. Stack said, we've yet to come to an agreement. Rennie said, why do it feel like we over here negotiating a business deal? Stack said, because getting an understanding avoids misunderstandings. Rennie said, sir, we met yesterday. I think it's a little soon for you to be asking me to be your girlfriend. Stack said, I'd agree, which is why I'm not. I'm asking you to commit to getting to know me and let me get to know you. I'm asking if you're willing to commit to sharing energy with me and only me, and letting me know if you change your mind. I'm asking you to take the lead on preventing pregnancies, because you put a hurting on them condoms. I'm asking you to walk away and let it go when we leave the underground, if any of that doesn't meet your standards. Rennie said, so you know I'm going to tell my girls everything, right? Stack said, I'd expect nothing less. Rennie said, and we all nosy as hell, so they going to be watching. Stack said, you going to be a handful. Just don't be a problem. Rennie said, I have a tendency to get very possessive and beat the hell out of broads. Stack said, and I don't argue, I shoot niggas. Rennie said, I think we have a deal. Stack signaled the waiter and said, check, please. Then he looked at Rennie and said, when the waiter brings the check, he's going to bring a key. You got options. We can head back to the safe house and deal with this little situation with Phil, or you can make him wait. They got this room here that I've always wanted to check out, but I've never had a reason, an occasion, or a woman that I wanted to check it out with. Something tells me that it's right up your alley. It offers a perfect mix of pleasure and pain. What say you? Rennie said, I keep telling you, don't threaten me with a good time. Stack said, you never told me that. Rennie said, oops, my bad. I think that was Phil. And he definitely wasted my time. So you know, I'm on a pill. All that fighting with them condoms last night was a waste of time. Stack said, say less. Meanwhile, over at the St. James estate, Wise and Selima on a backless bench in the middle of a maze in the garden, surrounded by perfectly manicured bushes perched between two huge fountains, providing the perfect white noise. The newlyweds are fully engulfed in the act of lovemaking. Wise is straddling the bench. Selima is laying with her back flat on the bench. Her bottom is in his lap, and they are thigh to thigh. He's holding her hands and using his hips to thrust. They just finished playing hide and go get it. Selima was hiding, and Wise went to get it. He told her when they entered the maze that when he got it, he was going to tear it up, and he wasn't going to stop until she was screaming his name. So while he won the first part of the game, she was winning the second part. She was darn near holding her breath to keep from letting out a sound, and he was working overtime, trying to make her give it up. With every thrust, he was talking. Say it. Say it. What's my name? And she was saying, Their whole rhythm was thrown off when they heard voices coming from the other side of the bushes. They jumped up, grabbed their clothes, and found a spot in the bushes that they could peek through. On the other side was True and Amir. Amir said, talk to me, True. You look how I feel. Something tells me that I can relate. True said, oh, really? Amir said, really? Try me. I know you're a private person, and I don't blame you, but I guarantee if it's about a man, I can help. True asked, are you friends with anybody who came here for Nigel's funeral? Amir said, no. I barely know any of them. Other than Javier, it's all been business. True said, then you wouldn't have a personal reason to defend him. But all y'all niggas stick together. Amir said, I'm not one of them niggas. And I could say the same thing for y'all women. How about this? I'll tell you about my problem. And if you could relate, you tell me about yours. True said, all right. Amir said, for years, I gave my heart, my time to a woman that I couldn't have. I honestly never expected for the opportunity to present itself, for us to be more than just friends. Due to circumstances outside of either of our control, the opportunity did present itself. True said, and what did you do? Amir said, I went for it. I gave it everything I had, every trick in the book. I did things to that woman that most women only dream of. And she let me. Up until that point, I'd just been a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, lean on, a confidant. We played a little, but never went all the way. But I finally got the chance to take it beyond all the way. And I went all the way. True said, you know that sex is not the end-all be-all, right? There are lots of women who can do all that with you and feel absolutely nothing. And there are women who can do all that with you and feel everything you intend for them to feel. And they can still decide not to be with you like that. Amir said, nah, I never knew that. Of course I know that. But I honestly believed that she felt the same way about me that I felt about her. I truly thought that once the thing that was standing between us was gone, she'd be all in. I thought the sex would just be the nail in the proverbial coffin. True said, and let me guess, that was your consolation prize. She gave you a little trim so that all the time you'd invested wouldn't be a waste. But when it was over, she told you it was over. Amir said, how'd you guess? They both laughed, and True said, she was using you, Amir. And you let her. She ain't play you. You played you. Getting involved with somebody who's already involved with somebody else or invisibly tied to somebody else is a recipe for damn disaster. Ask me how I know. Amir said, okay, how you know? True said, because I made the mistake of falling for somebody who was clearly not over his ex. And since he couldn't fix her and make her be all of the things that he'd hoped she would be, he decided that he would fix me. I didn't see it until today, but I'm not just all the things that she wasn't. I'm all the things she was, too. He knew exactly who I was when he met me. Amir said, and did you know who he was when you met him? True said, I did. Amir asked, and is he still that same man? True said, he is. The only problem is I was willing to accept him for who and how he is. But he saw me as a project, as a problem that he could solve. And now that I know that, I can't unknow it. Amir said, so you thinking it's a lost cause? True said, absolutely. Amir said, well, she had the nerve to tell me that she was freeing me to find the woman that was right for me, like she was doing me a favor. True said, she was. The worst thing you can do is hold on to a woman who don't want to be held on to. Amir said, sounds like you speaking from experience. You had a rock on that finger when I saw you earlier. What happened? True said, I gave it back. Amir said, then you know what they say. Best way to get over one somebody is to get under another. True said, Amir, don't even waste your time. Amir said, I'm not trying to offend you, True. True said, and you didn't. Remember, I told you that there are lots of women who can do all that with you and feel absolutely nothing. I am not the tree you want to bark up. Because the way I'm feeling right now, I could see you every which way but loose and think nothing of it. Amir said, so you wouldn't be offended if I told you that that's what I need right now. True said, they got cameras in this maze? Amir said, yeah, and I can turn them off. He pulled out his phone, went to the security software and said, they already off. True said, Amir, and before she could protest fully, Amir had already grabbed her, pulled her to him, covered her mouth with his, used one hand to pull her shirt up out of the back of her skirt, and the other hand was already expertly gliding up the back of her thigh and up under the skirt. On the other side of the bush, Wise was ready to explode. Galima was silently begging him not to give them away, while she pulled him deeper into the maze. When they were far enough away, Salima said, there's got to be a reasonable explanation for this, Wise. I know what it looks like, but it can't be what it looks like. Let me talk to her and find out what's going on. Please, don't go over there and confront them. And don't tell Wood. Wise said, you want me to keep this from my boy? He was just my best man in our wedding. They just got engaged. He loves her. Salima said, I know. And True loves him too. So there's got to be more to it than this. There's got to be something we don't know. Wise said, like what? What reasonable explanation could there be other than she going out dirty? Salima said, you heard what he said. He said that there was a woman who all of a sudden, due to some circumstances outside of his control, was suddenly available to him. I think he's talking about Catherine. Everybody's been looking at him sideways. He dropped the ball on keeping up with Nigel. I bet any amount of money Uncle Manny put True up to this. I said if he did, then he dirty as hell too. That would explain that whole speech that he just gave us about how y'all might have to cheat on us. Salima said, what? Well, I said, yeah. He gave a whole speech about how heads and right hands might very well have to cheat. Salima said, well, babe, he didn't lie.